eat, 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 eat. So all of these things that your mind uh, does to keep itself basically away from mindfulness are not there. And you have 5 hours of driving. So what do? You meditate. And those of you who have heard me talk about meditation, you know that meditation is not about sitting there on a cushion and closing your eyes. Meditation is about being mindful and observing your mind and your body objectively at all times. So what do? I observe my mind. I observe my mind wanting to move my hand to turn on the radio. I observe my mind wanting to move my hand to go on my cell phone to find out did I get an email? Is there something new on Facebook? Is there something? Something! Come on! I'm so bored. My mind is so bored because I'm driving, right? This is your mind. This is all happening in your mind. Something has to happen, right? But nothing. It's all turned off. So it's like your mind is like this trapped rabid animal. It's like reaching out, like lashing out, trying to find something. And then it's like it gives up. And you're just there. And you're just observing. You're observing your mind as this is all happening. If you're at the beginning, it's hard to do that. But as you're able to practice and observe your mind, you're able to see the mind work like this. So I'm almost laughing, observing my mind struggling and fighting. If you ever watch like The Exorcist, when the priest is doing the prayers and like the person's going ah, like that's what I've like pictured my mind. Like it's like almost like my mind was being excised. Like the demons were being excised out, which is kind of funny. But so I went that whole 5 hours in just peace and quiet, and my mind was peace. After a while, after it gave up the fighting, and I didn't force it to give up the fighting. I let it go. That's the thing about meditation. When you start to force something, that's when it starts to fight back. That's when what could be a good practice with insight turns into a struggle of negativity and you not wanting to meditate anymore. I know, I've been there. I stopped meditating because of that. So when you just observe without judgment and you just let things happen, that's when peace comes. That's when quiet comes. So I was able to enjoy my visit, enjoy my travel, and be mindful. Observe the road. And you start to see things. I've taken this trip 4 times, right? There are things I don't remember that from the last time I drove. I don't remember that. You start to see things on the road because you're being more mindful. And that is practice. What I did was, for those 5 hours, was practice. It wasn't easy. Practice never is. If meditation practice was easy, everybody would already be enlightened. Practice takes effort. So it's not easy. And you have to have the drive and the effort to be able to do it. And that's something that we can talk about when we do the meditation class. But let's see, where else did I want to go for this? I'm trying to remember my different. Oh yes, going back to how I was talking about in the beginning about having negativity. My experiences have been very painful sitting there for 5 hours. And you don't sit there for 5 hours straight, don't get me wrong. But even 5 hours with breaks in between, over the course of a day is very, very rough. You're gonna get pains. You're gonna get, you're gonna get negativity. You're gonna get frustration. The key is learning how to accept that, and dealing with the pain almost is actually helpful in the practice of observing and understanding the concept of not self, of anatta. Because it's almost, when you start to little by little almost accept that the pain isn't yours, it isn't you, it actually helps. It's weird, but it helps. And the pain can exist. You can accept it. It's just there. This body has pain. But one thing I noticed, I got there and I do my first meditation of 5, and as soon as I walk into that meditation hall, the scene of lots of pain, lots of frustration, lots of negative mind states, but also of deep insights. I could feel negativity. And I sat down and I could feel, thought to myself, why is my back tense? Why is my back hurting already? I've been sitting down for 2 minutes. But that was an insight of how much pain is really pain, and how much pain is added on to by our own minds, right? When I observed that I had this pain already, and it didn't make sense, why would I have this pain? And I observed my mind, and it had this negativity of being, and it's kind of weird. You think, oh, why would you, it's a wonderful place, why would you have negativity? But you accept that your mind does have these things, fears and angers and negativities, and it's not something that you should feel guilty about, especially in a monastery, because that's what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be observing and seeing the mind as it does these things, and not being judgmental about it. Not like, oh, my stupid mind, why would I be negative about this, or why would I have this, or why would I think this way. That's the wrong way to go. That's the way to developing even more negativity and more negative mind states. So my mind, oh yeah, I guess I should have said that's the wrong way to go, but it's the way that as you practice you realize is unskillful. How about that? It's unskillful. Because you realize it's harmful to yourself. I forgot. Oh, you got me again, Noble. But yes, it's a good way to go for educational purposes. Yeah. But it's the way you're gonna go anyway. But the thing is to accept it and understand it, not to fight it. So when I sat down and I felt it and I observed it, I said, oh, it's this negativity from the past in there. And I observed it, and it went away, and my back was fine. And I had a pretty good meditation. Now, after about the 3rd day, I started getting some pains again, but that's more normal. That is from the sitting a lot and the working a lot. When you go to a monastery, you do work. Whether you're a retreat, if you go there at the Bhavana Society, just like on a non-retreat time, the monks and the lay people who live there, they have 4 hours of work a day. They call it work periods. So they have work period between 8:30 and 10:30, and a work period from 2 2 to 4. So you're not just going there and meditate. You're meditating 3 hours a day. You're working, doing either cleaning, cleaning the buildings, or I like to go out and I like to cut wood and stuff like that. I like to do outdoorsy kind of stuff because it's a forest monastery. So you get to do that kind of stuff, or you're fixing things, or you're, so over time you do get the pains. But again, that's also natural. You accept that. If you can accept the pain and you live with the pain, and it's not easy. That's why I have that negativity built in, because it's gotten the better of me. But gradually, as you practice, it gets a little easier each time. And the negativity either goes away or it's not as much each time. To the point where I know I'm going to have this stuff. It's natural that I'm going to have these negativities still and these pains when I go. And I accept them. But I also know that with these mind states and with the body being tired and the body having pains, I'll also have great insights. And I also will advance in my practice, even if it's just so slowly, even if I don't have any, I can come back and talk about these insights or that insights. I still know that it was worth it. 10 hours of driving, round trip, worth it. Negativity from the past, pain, worth it. That's why I highly suggest, if you can go to a meditation center or a monastery to do a retreat, and if you've never done one before, you only do a 2-day retreat, like a weekend retreat. You start out, you gradually build. I highly suggest, and even if it's not in if you have a specific tradition, even if it's not in your tradition, I still suggest going. Because my first retreat a year ago in July 4th retreat actually, was not at a Theravada. It wasn't at Bhavana Society. It wasn't at a Theravada monastery. It was at a Mahayana monastery, a Chinese Mahayana monastery. As a matter of fact, it was at the monastery, the Bodhi monastery, the one that I go to try to meet Bhikkhu Bodhi. I've never seen him. So I went there, and it was a 3-day retreat, and I learned a lot about Mahayana that didn't necessarily fit into my worldview. I mean, it didn't fit into my a Theravadan kind of thing, but I also learned a lot in general, and it was worth it. And that experience made me want to do more. So think about it. From July to August, right? I've only been on my first retreat barely a year ago. In 1 year from that retreat, I did a 3-day retreat, a 5-day retreat, a 7-day retreat, and 2 of my own 4-day retreats. 5 retreats within a year. That can show you how it's affected my practice. How more peaceful and understanding I've become just in this year. 5 retreats. So if you can go to one, no matter what the sect or tradition, I highly suggest going to one. Because really what it's about is not about a sect or a tradition. It's about you being in this place, in this atmosphere conducive to meditation. I'm not going to say conducive to peace and happiness, because that's in your mind. You can go to Bhavana Society and you can have a horrible, you can have what in your mind is a horrible negative experience. I could have been like, 5 days, my back, this, blah, blah, blah. Screw this place. I ain't doing this again. What am I, nuts? Go and do all this stuff? But But no, in my mind, I knew it was worth it. So you can have a retreat in the middle. You can sit down in the middle of Manhattan during rush hour and have a retreat right there if you really wanted to, if you were able to, in your mind. Has nothing to do with the place where you're at. Has to do with your mind. And you learn that too, because the last time I was there back in May, we were doing a meditation in the morning, and guess what? There was a cricket in the meditation hall. So for an hour, crick 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 crick. And I walked in and I said, Dhamma friends, my friend Cricket, Ajahn Cricket. Because those of you who've heard me talk before, Ajahn Brahm tells a story about how he had, when he was a novice monk and he was learning, mosquitoes were bothering, because he said that there would be 100 mosquitoes on you. And he went to Ajahn Chah to complain about the mosquitoes. And Ajahn Chah said, from now on, those mosquitoes will be your teacher. You will call them Ajahn Mosquito. So I take that now. So I say, Ajahn Cricket, thank you very much, teacher. So you have like that. It's almost like Chinese water torture, right? You're trying to meditate. So what do you do in that situation, right? What do? You're sitting there. You're supposed to be meditating. You're supposed to follow the breath and all this stuff. But then you start to getting these feelings. You damn cricket. What do? You observe those mind states. You observe your thoughts. You're not putting any judgment on it. You might curse out that cricket in your mind. You're observing your mind doing that. You're observing the mind states as they happen. And you know what you're doing? You're actually meditating in that moment. Even though your mind is agitated and it almost wants to get up and find that cricket and squash it, but you better not, because you took the 8 precepts when you went, so you're not supposed to be killing anything. But so even though your mind wants to do this stuff, what you do is you observe it. And if you're a beginner meditator, you might not be able to do that. But that's a skill that comes as you practice. So you're able to observe your mind being agitated. You're able to observe your mind concentrating on that cricket, 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 cricket. When you're supposed to be, the books and your teacher says you're supposed to be observing the breath and doing this and doing that. So that even gets you more angry. I'm supposed to be observing the breath. Blah, 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 blah. So, but what you're doing is, if you're observing your mind, if you're observing yourself thinking about this, if you're observing yourself being angry at the cricket, being angry at yourself for being angry at the cricket, you're observing all of that and just seeing it happen, watching it happen, no judgment, you're actually meditating. That is meditation. That's Vipassana meditation. Seeing things as they truly are. Not putting any judgment, not putting any extra on that. That is meditation. That's a strong meditation, because that is insight into your own mind, and that's the whole point of meditation. So no matter what, that's why I say you could sit down in the middle of Manhattan and have the deepest, most peaceful meditation of your life, if you're practiced enough to know how to do it right. So that is one of those things that you learn. Even you think that you can escape. Your expectations are that you're going to escape to a nice, peaceful monastery and meditate. You're working hard. Your work keeps you late all the time. So you go, I'm going to go for 4 days to the monastery and meditate and be peaceful. You can, but only if you allow yourself that. It's not the externalities of life. A location that's supposed to be peaceful and quiet, but then there's a cricket for an hour. All of these things, you expect all these things to happen, right? You expect that you're supposed to go and be nice, peaceful, and this and that, and then all this stuff happens. Again, expectations. Expectations shot out the window. How you deal with that in the present moment, that's mindfulness. That's meditation. So that's the importance. This is why I highly suggest, if you can go to any kind of meditation retreat, do it. Now, one of the things that I'll go into, I guess, a little bit more specifics about retreats. From my experience, if it's a real monastery, it will always be free. You will never pay anything to go to a retreat. Your food is food that are donated to the retreat, to the monastery. So you're eating the same thing that the monks are eating. You're eating with the monks when the monks eat. Your lodging is there at the monastery. They're not charging you every, like you're staying at a hotel. They're not charging you for Dhamma, for classes, it's all free. Because the Dhamma is free. At least it should be. Now, I got a thing in my email, at a Tibetan thing. It's not a monastery, it's just a retreat center. But it's like, you can come here and listen to this famous Buddhist person talk, and you can, it's like $400 for a queen bed, this or that, for 4 days or whatever, and it's all these prices, and I just think to myself, oh, I would never go to a place like that. And then you might learn good stuff there, but just for me personally, I go straight to the source. I go straight to what I call the keepers. When I bow to the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, right? When I do the refuge to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, this is what I say. I go for refuge, or I venerate the Buddha, the cool dude, the awesome dude, who was it shows us that any normal person can become enlightened. I venerate, or I go to the Dhamma for refuge, right? The Dhamma is the truth. It's the reality of existence. How can you not venerate that? How can you not want to go to the truth of existence for refuge, right? And the third thing is, I venerate the Sangha. I go to the Sangha for refuge. Who are the Sangha? The Sangha are the keepers of Dhamma. They are the instrument that has brought the teachings of the Buddha, which the Buddha himself says are not his teachings. These are ancient teachings that exist, because it's not something that somebody makes up. It's reality. And the Buddha says there were many Buddhas before him, there will be many Buddhas after, that find the Dhamma, find the true nature of things, and express it to all beings, so that for all the compassion of all beings. So this is why it's important. This is why you understand, to me, I go to the source. I go right to the monks. I don't really trust anybody but the monks. And that's why I say, don't ever trust anything I always say too. Because I'm not a monk. But you know what the monks will say? Don't trust or believe anything they say. You're always verifying, right? You're always taking things into your own experience and analysis. You're not supposed to just... There's no such thing as blind faith in Buddhism. You don't just say, oh, this person said that, and he's my teacher, so that's 100% true. You don't do that. You're always observing, analyzing, understanding. If it's something that is not beneficial to you, or it harms yourself or others, then you say, oh yeah, you know, my teacher says this, but I don't know about that. You know, that it doesn't seem to fit well. So, you're trusting the monks, but you never want to have blind faith in anything. The Buddha told us that we should not. The Buddha, in fact, there's a sutta where the Buddha talks about the proper way to analyze whether the Buddha is actually enlightened. He's talking about people say, this is how you should go about to find out if I am enlightened or somebody's enlightened, etc. It's very interesting. But there is I had another connection in my mind. I love does anybody know the poem "The Road Less Traveled" by Frost? I took the road less traveled, and it made all the difference. Right? Well, I connected that with and I never connected this before. I don't know why, but I connected that over the weekend. The Buddha talks about the Dhamma, right? As the Noble Eightfold Path, the Dhamma as an ancient city. There's a sutta, and forgive me, I don't remember exactly where it's from, but the sutta he talks about, it's as if somebody is walking on the road and they see a path that was traveled by people of ancient times, and they follow that path and they find a city that was, inhabited by people of ancient times with parks and groves and all kinds of things. And you go back to the king and you say, King, rebuild this city so that in future times the city is vibrant and full of people, right? So that's what the Buddha talked about, the Noble Eightfold Path and the four Noble Truths, the Dhamma. That is, he found an ancient path. So what did the Buddha do to find that path? He went down an ancient path that was less traveled. The Buddha took the road less traveled, and it made all the difference. So it's the same thing for us. We can take that road less traveled, and it will make all the difference. There's an interesting connection that I thought to myself, why did I not make that connection before? It's right there. It makes 100% sense, at least to me anyway. Because I love that. I always felt like I did things differently than most people. Like I was going down a path different than most people. And considering that I am going down the path where I'm most likely going to become a monk in a couple years, I am going down a path that's different. It's almost like I've been on this path, right? So if you're a Buddhist, you're on the path too, because the Buddha talks about the Dhamma going against the stream of what people consider to be normal. So Dhamma goes against the streams. His teaching goes against the stream. His teaching goes down that road less traveled. And not everybody wants to travel that road. It's a hard road. Nobody wants to. Most people don't want to use a matrix thing. Most people don't want to take the red pill. Buddhism is that red pill. It's to see things as they truly are. And most people are like, yeah, I'm happy with the way it is. I'll keep the blue pill, thanks. I don't want to see things as they truly are. I don't want to know the full truth. I'm happy with my ignorance. Ignorance is bliss, right? And then even if you remember the Matrix, there's the one guy who hated reality, and he was ready to sell out all his friends so he could be put back in the Matrix. He saw what reality was and he didn't like it, so he wanted to go back. So it's like once, when you find reality, then if you don't like it, I don't know how that works. That probably wouldn't work out too well. So most people are new seeds. They will get sun and water as we all do in our own time, in our own season. Yes. Yep. But that's why when the Buddha didn't want to teach, he was told there are beings with little dust in their eyes, and there are beings with lots of dust in their eyes. Each person has their own season. Some people are ready, some people are not. So when I left after having some good the other thing real quick that I found out, I'm way over time actually, so if you need to go, you can definitely go. It's 10:09, but usually these talks end up going over time. So if those of you need to go, it's good to see you again, but I'll continue briefly until we end here. I came up with the concept of, those of you who've heard me talk about my meditation before, I have trouble following my breath, or at least I had trouble with it for a long time. It's not as bad as it was. I'm coming to accept and understand and being able to follow my breath. But I've come to find out over this retreat, I came up with the concept of the very most natural breath. And basically what my concept was, no matter what kind of breath it is, you just observe it. Even if it's a forced breath, even if you can observe, when you're really controlling your breath and when you're not. The first time that my mind was totally detached from my breath, whereas just my body was breathing, my mind was not in control of my breathing, it was a weird experience. It was almost like an out-of-body kind of experience. Like, it was like, whoa, like really, I have no control over my breath whatsoever. None. And it's still a rare experience for me today, actually. But it's an experience that you work with. When you see that, when your body is just doing the breathing and you're really just observing your breath, it's a whole other experience compared to well, what happened was I was getting a little frustrated, and I found out and what happened was how I was talking about before, how you just observe, right? I just observed. If my mind felt like, I've had asthma as a kid, so I kind of have this attachment to my breath. I can remember feeling like I couldn't breathe, like trying to sleep at night, so I would take these deep breaths and stuff like that, and that's how I became like a mouth breather, and I just very attached to my breath, right? So it's been a struggle to really totally let go of my breath. Totally let go. Whereas in you really literally have no control. If you notice, say you're doing something, you're thinking of something, right? Your mind's off your breath, so your body's breathing. You don't need to think and to control your breath to breathe, but your mind for some reason has this attachment that you feel like you need to, even if it's the most subtle control, your mind is still controlling your breath. And when it's not, you know it. You know it 100% because you know that experience. But what I just did was, if my mind, if I wanted to breathe deep or breathe out of my mouth instead of my nose, I just let it happen. However I was breathing, even if I noticed myself controlling my breath, I observed myself controlling my breath. And do you know what happened? After a couple minutes, I wasn't feeling like short breath. I wasn't feeling like, if I take a deep breath now, I can't take a deep breath. I've never been able to actually take a deep breath normally in my whole life. Like, I know what a deep breath is like, because like when I yawn, I take in all this air. Like, oh my God, like that's a nice deep breath, right? I can't take a deep breath. So, but when I noticed that I'm not controlling my breath, I just was observing my breath and noticing, and my breathing, I was deep and slow breathing. After just letting myself breathe however I was breathing, if I was controlling it, if I was needing to breathe deep, breathe through my mouth, all of a sudden, I was just observing my breath, and it was just nice and calm and deep. And I felt like I was getting all the air I needed. And I was just like, wow, that's the most natural breath, right? That's it, the very most natural breath. But I didn't struggle and fight to get there. I just let my breath happen how it happened. And it happened. That's the letting go part of meditation. That's how that works. If you fight it, if you get angry that you're supposed to be able to let your breath go and you can't, then it won't work for you. It'll go the opposite way. So you let your breath just go. You let it just happen. However it happens, you just let it happen. You observe it. And if you see yourself getting mad about how it's happening, you observe your mind and your feeling about how you're getting mad. Whatever level it is, and that's the other thing I found out. That's the saying that I came up with over this weekend. Whatever it is, you can observe it. You can say you're, like you get angry. You're supposed to be breathing. You get angry that you can't breathe. You can't follow your breath. You observe yourself getting angry, right? That you can't follow your breath, and then you're having a hard time following yourself, getting angry at your breath. So you get angry at yourself not being able to observing yourself following the breath. So it's like these levels, and each level you can step back and observe that preceding level and all the levels before it. So whatever it is, when you're practicing whatever it is, you can observe it. Whatever it is, you just know that. And the more levels of mind that you can experience, Bhante G talks about it in his book, Mindfulness in Plain English. How eventually you get to the point where you can see your mind processes as they occur subconsciously. Now, I can't speak from experience. I'm not to that point yet. But I can see those some levels, so you can see the stuff as it happens. But whatever it is, you can observe it. That is meditation. So coming back, as I was driving home, I was thinking to myself, I wanted to put it on, listen to, if you've had my metta meditation on Thursdays, I give that link to the chanting of the metta. And I thought about putting the chant on, because I wanted to listen to it as I was driving. But then I had negativity about it. I was like, I didn't want to listen to that. I was thinking in my mind, I was doing this Buddhist stuff for 4 days. My mind is tired of this Buddhist stuff. So I says, you know what? You know what? Negativity. That's the perfect time. The aversion. That's the perfect time to listen to some metta. And I put it on. And you know what I was doing for an hour and a half? I was chanting with the song. I was chanting metta for an hour and a half. And at the end, I went from this negativity and this aversion to I was literally crying as I was chanting it. Because I was reading like the English translation. And I started tearing. I had these emotions of may all beings be free from enmity. May all beings be free from negative mental states and negative mental pain, physical pain. All what I chant at the end of the Abhyapajo Homi, or Anigo, Awedo Homi, all of those. That's all the chant of metta. So I was literally, until my voice, I had to stop because my voice hurt. I was chanting the metta over and over again for an hour and a half. That's the power of metta as well. That's why I'm excited for my 7-day metta retreat. But anyway, I think that's pretty much covers everything that I wanted to talk about in terms of my experiences from the retreat. So bottom line is, if you can go to a retreat, go to it. If you don't know of any Buddhist stuff in your area, Google just type in Google world buddhanet.net. Find a monastery near you. They actually have the World Buddhist Directory. Or if you can go to buddhanet.net and just look for the World Buddhist Directory. You can even put in your area code or your country or your whatever, and you can find the nearest monastery or the nearest place to go and that kind of stuff. So, and that's it. So unless there's any last comments or questions or anything like that, I think we can end. Yeah, chopping wood, you want to forget about your breathing. You know why? Because if you're not mindful about chopping your wood, your breathing is going to be really, really fast when your fingers are off. or there's an axe in your foot. So you want to forget about your breathing. If there's a time to be mindful at a forest monastery, it's sure when you're cutting the wood. Because the last thing you need to do, because there ain't no hospital anywhere close. Maybe, I think there's a hospital 30 miles away, 40 miles away. So if you got an axe in your foot, you got a long way to go before you go to a hospital. Let's see. I'm reading a Noble One. I love when you come to these talks because you make things interesting. Let me see. Thank you, KJ. It's good to see you as always. Welcome, Moonbeam. We're ending, but you feel free to come sit and meditate if you'd like. By the way, for those interested, you should be able to find this talk on there soon. But for those interested, I will give you my link. That is Student of the Path. That's me, Student of the Path channel. You can find my talks and stuff like that on there. Also, not only just my stuff, but I've actually made a bunch of playlists of really, really good, like any great video I watch, like Dhamma video, it's on there. I have playlists for Bhikkhu Bodhi, I have playlists for Ajahn Brahm, I have playlists for Venerable Yuta Dhammo, who used to be a teacher here. I have playlists for Bhante G, and I have just specific playlists, like playlists for videos on Four Noble Truths, or this or that. So it's a good resource just for that, and also a bunch of good links too to different Buddhist stuff. So There's a lot of stuff on there. Let me go back to reading Noble One's thing. You don't have to hang out. So those of you who need to go, with Suki Hantu, may you be happy. I'm just gonna read Noble One's dissertation here and see where it goes. Is that a Buddhist joke or a true story? I'm trying to see. Yeah, it's hard to tell. Oh yeah, I like it. That's funny. I'll tell you. Did you ever see Little Buddha? In the beginning, the very first scene is this monk teaching the young novice monks, like the kids, telling the story. But the story goes, and this I think is like a Buddhist joke too. The story is going like it was a Brahmin, right, and he was sacrificing goats, and he was gonna sacrifice this goat, and the goat was crying. Oh no, I'm sorry, no, the goat was laughing. And the goat, and he says, and the Brahmin was like surprised that the goat could talk, right? And so he starts talking to the goat. He says, "What are you laughing for?" And he says, "After 500 times dying and being reborn as a goat, I will finally be a human once more." And then the goat started crying. And the Brahmin said, "Why are you crying?" And the goat said, "I'm crying for you out of compassion. 500 years ago, I too was a high priest that sacrificed goats." If that's not a Buddhist joke, I don't know what is. Every time I hear that story, it's a little bit more expanded than what I did. But so basically the gist was that the poor priest, when he died, is going to end up having to be a goat for 500 lifetimes. But okay, anyway, so